Hi everybody, and welcome to our Creative Corner for another month's image. It's great to see you here. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining in. So if you don't know what this is all about, let me explain. Every month, the last Sunday of every month, I come on here and I build an image from the ground up with you. And you can put in your comments, your questions, your thoughts as we progress along. So thank you for being here. First things first is there is always a point that I've traveled to get to where we are today. So the setting, the background, the flower selection, the things that I've put together to start from scratch with you. And I'd like to take you on that journey a little bit first before we start, so that you understand what it is that I've got in my mind, where I've come from, and also the concept that we're working on this week. So I'd like to take you on a little bit of a journey, and I'd like to share with you some of my explorations this month. If Philippe can roll the video.
It is now spring and we're seeing a lot of things flying in the air, such as butterflies and bees. So this month I've been looking and focusing on bees in our local area and seeing what flowers they like and what environments they're currently living in. And fortunately for me, I didn't have to go very far. A little path to a local park discovered some very interesting clues for me. To the right of this path, the building site has just been finished and so has left a pile of what looks to be just earth. But clues revealed on closer inspection that the bees were actually using it as their homes and living inside the mounds. And some of them were cleverly leaving place markers outside their homes so they could come back to them and recognize which hole was theirs. Clever things, and they're ingenious to watch. So these smaller ones are the honeybees, but often because we live in a very urban area, things aren't always so good for them. And this bee is a solitary bee that I found and have been trying to look after him by feeding him a spoonful of water and sugar. And sometimes this works to help revive the bees and just give them a little bit of a rest so that they can then be on their way. But of course, it doesn't always work. And sadly, in this case, after a full day, this bee didn't make it. But others that we've helped along the way have.
Okay, so that is our concept for this week, is bees. As it's springtime, I really wanted to capture something that represents where we are in our seasons, but also something that's going on. Now, because I was studying around bees and I was looking at some inspiration, as you all know by now, I'm sure, I take inspiration from a lot of different things. And some of the things that you saw in that video, I was able to pull from exactly what I wanted in the inspiration that I will be using today. So the first thing that I saw there that I found fascinating was that the mound of soil there was actually some of the homes of the bees. I had always assumed that bees were just in a beehive, but I learned that that's not true, that bees also live, or different sorts of bees live in different places. So I'm going to be using some of the soil from last week that I got from a local building site. So I'm just going to put that into my image straight away on the ground floor. So this is, that's going to be some of my base. Let me just turn my camera on, make sure that we are in live view. So that's going to be my base. I'm going to have that as the floor. And the next thing that I'm going to think about is how that was arranged, like what sort of composition that I'm thinking of for this image. And the sorts of things that I was thinking about was inspiration from some of pictures and from some of the paintings that I've been looking at. And there's a couple of things that I think are really interesting that perhaps you will also find inspiration from. One is an Instagram account, and the account is called @TripImprover. And I think Philippe's going to put that on the screen now for you. What happens is this Instagram account basically showcases portraits and paintings from the past, which are really beautiful. And one of them in particular really struck me. And it was a painting, in fact, TripImprover does a YouTube video each week, and the video actually showed this painting. So the video, let's put that online, great. So this is the video that I took inspiration from, where basically he explained the things and the elements within this picture. And this picture is obviously very striking. It's striking for a lot of different reasons, but obviously the main striking nature of it is the fact that you can see human emotions kind of superimposed onto animals. And that really kind of allowed me to play with this idea that perhaps my image can show animals but also human emotions onto that, and the way that they do it. Now, in this particular image, there's a couple of things that I really love about it. And if you were to Google the image, there's I think there's now a Google Arts and Culture app. And if you don't know about this, this is amazing. It allows you to put in the image that you want and then zoom into the image, like properly super close, so you can see the paintbrushes, elements of it. Now, by zooming in, I was able to see in particular the leg of the lamb had kind of moved around a little bit, like making a snow angel pattern, and had been depicted in the image. And I really, that kind of grabbed me, that element grabbed me, and also the way that all of the crows were kind of stood around the sheep as if to crow over it. And I kind of liked those elements and thought that that would be a really good image to use as my inspiration for today's image. So that's the concept, that's the background of where I'm coming from. And that's from there the image that I'm going to build up today. So I'm now going to start building up my image. We've got some soil here. So I've already explained I'm going to be using that as texture on the base. And the other things that I saw in observing the bees was that in some of the bee holes themselves, they were using little things like things that were on the floor, on the ground, sycamore leaves, or whatever that was naturally on the ground, as little flags almost in the ground to show them where their hole was, so that they would always and easily be able to come back to that, to their own hole, rather than going to somebody else's hole that wasn't theirs. So I thought that was really interesting. So I'm just building up here a line of texture on our floor. So that will be a starting point. And in the middle of it, so I'm going to move some of these rocks out of the way, but I will put a marker in place in a second. Okay, so it's already naturally some of the little shapes. If you can go to camera live view here, you can see already there's little markers, little dark holes that we can pretend are bee holes. And I'm going to use a bee that I actually found near the footpath that is unfortunately very squashed, but I thought would be a fantastic kind of element. And he's a very small thing, so he's going to need to stand out. So let's put him perhaps on a rock, on a something that really is going to
bring him to the foreground. Perhaps I might even need a bigger rock. I just want to make sure that he's going to be the lamb, essentially, in the painting. If we can bring the reference painting up in the corner so that everybody can see what it is I'm working towards. Now, he's quite difficult to see there, so we might have to work something else out here, but let's potentially might have to just have him as a bigger piece of rock. Obviously, trying to get him to stand out of the background is going to be a difficult thing, but hopefully we will have a bee standing over him as well. So I'm also aware I'm not going to fiddle too much in this live. I will try and move through things and then fiddle later. So we're going to have him there, but we're also going to have, let's push him to the left a little bit and back. Okay, so he is now in the place that the lamb is in our image. And so the next thing I'm going to do is to have a bee protecting over him. Now, bees actually live in harmony with other species, so I don't need to select a honeybee, which this one is. I can select a solo bee, which is much bigger, and he can be the guardian of the bee and protect him. So I'm going to select from my collection a bee that's a little bit bigger, and we're going to pop him in. We're going to place him just for now. I think he's going to go. He's going to go there. Okay. So that's kind of what it's looking like at the moment. The next thing I'm now going to do is to bring up some of the crows, as it were. So I've selected a whole bunch of flowers that are bee friendly, and that are different colours. So I've got purples and yellows. So let's have a look at how we're going to build this up. So I kind of want perhaps something that surround him that kind of look like those crows. And I have got some white flowers. And these white flowers are they're a bit droopy and they hang over. So I wonder if they might hang over in the way that we want them to. So that might be one option, although they are a little bit sprayed over. I wanted them all in one way. Let's see what we've got here. Or perhaps we're going to go with the purple chives. I know that they're going to be in the image somewhere as well. So I want the image to be built up in layers. So I'm testing which flowers will go with each other. Sorry, I didn't catch that, Philippe. Did you?
Okay, sorry. So my camera focus is off apparently, so I'm just gonna, must have moved in the, let's just focus him on the main character there so you can all, okay, perfect. Okay, so these are kind of, I'm thinking whether or not these would be suitable for the crows. Like where they are, they hang over him, don't they? They kind of, they're all around this circle. White is very bright and it is very catching, so I'm not convinced that it's going to be the standard or the thing that stays there. The other thing I have that might, where the crows are, they're kind of in that semicircle. If you can come back to me, Flick. They're in a semicircle. So the shape of them around the lamb is kind of like this shape of this branch. So I'm thinking whether or not we can use the branch itself as a way of kind of encapsulating the bees on the ground. So I'm going to see if that will work. And these are rosemary. These are utterly, they smell so great. I've used them before. And currently they are being a firm favourite of the bees locally. I think in each area wherever you are, bees have their preferences depending on what is grown in the area, what is wild and what isn't. So I'm going to see if that works, if that's a possibility. That might work, but let's just see if something else will pop out. At the moment I haven't got that feeling of, yep, that's right, that's where it is. So I'm going to keep working to see which flowers I feel go, which ones are absolutely right. And I really like that one actually. That one kind of goes for me in the feel of, it's a little bit, firstly the colour goes, but the background goes. So that's definitely I'm going to see about layering up and up and up so that the foreground has perhaps a little protective area around the bee. That's like, so that there's foliage or something around him that's kind of just keep him from everything up here, because he's so small. I kind of want there to be a distance between everything that gets up here. So I'm just going to start putting in some elements to see how we might just build up this little protective cocoon around him, if at all that's possible. Let's see. It's just, so I'm just seeing what works and what doesn't. As I say, at the moment I haven't got that yes, that's right feeling, so I'm just gonna, the colour is definitely right and I love that, so I'm wondering if that's just because at the moment it just needs a bit of teasing out. And a bit like the fence line around the lamb. Just trying to work out the bits and pieces to see which will work. So we kind of want a little barrier. This is working quite well, isn't it? So we'll keep building that up. Okay. And because this is such a small set this time, so I'm very conscious that even the smallest things can look or have a dramatic impact on your set. but I'm also conscious that this bee needs just a little bit of space so that you can recognize what's going on here in comparison to everything that's going on around upside. So and just keep building him. Oh, my camera came off live view, so I'm just going to pop that back in. And okay, let's see if we can grab the feedback again. Okay, so I think that we are almost, like that base level is kind of in, and it's that nice barren place. It feels like a barren place. It feels like those crows are coming in a little bit. So I kind of like how that's starting to build up. I might just put in a few more just to see, like especially here, if we can't, there we go. Because it kind of feels like everything's coming in at them. This is the last stages of where he is, and perhaps even just something a little bit down here will be good. Now I've just found on the inside of this, let me just, can you switch the camera so that we can see in the inside of this twig, I don't know if you can see there, is this wonderful little stem. Now, let me put it into this camera so that you can see, hopefully you can. And that was in the middle of these beautiful twigs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as the thing that the bee would have used to mark his home. So I'm just going to pull that off and keep that to one side, and perhaps just put it, just marking just around the corner there, and you won't be able to see it unless you knew it was there. And that's the point, is these bees, they literally use things that you wouldn't know unless you were truly looking for. So I'm just going to leave that as like a little Easter egg to find. So the other thing I wanted to do was just pop something there to make a curve in my image. I didn't want to push everything over there, but I wanted to have like a curve in the front. That's a little bit too much. Let's see. Okay, so this is like a nice little cocoon going on. So I really like that feeling right now. The next thing I can start doing then is to work out what other flowers, if any, are going to live in this. So let me have a look. I have some thistles back here. And bees love thistles, and because they're purple, they will go really well with the background. So these are the thistles that I'm going to use. So I'm going to select perhaps some of the spike. Obviously they're all spiky, but perhaps some of them that are just opening, these ones back here. So let me see. I have to be very careful when I'm handling these because I don't want to hurt myself. So let me just cut some of these in. If you're having difficulty with our feed today, please let us know, because we think that we're okay, but sometimes it does cut in and out. So if you can let us know how the feed is for you and where you're joining us from, that will be really helpful. So I now am going to look at the height to see where these might live in terms of the height. And I'm not sure that I want them to be that tall, but having them that tall is kind of interesting to have such a kind of difference with the bees. We kind of wanted something to have, you know, a real reality feel for how big the bees are in comparison to everything else. But I think that that's probably too tall. So I'm going to cut this down just a little bit. So I'm going to snip it so that I keep the spikes at the bottom, because the spikes at the bottom kind of go with the spikes in the set. And I'm going to see, and my view's just fallen off for us. Today doesn't feel easy in terms of a spiky set and things rolling around, but that's okay. We'll live with it. Okay. So I'm just pushing that back in. I kind of perhaps focused pushing the thistles in this side so that they've got a pattern coming in. And these tall ones are really nice. So I might just cut them down just a tiny bit so that they're not completely dominating the landscape. I did want something a little bit taller than them actually, and I had poppies, but all of my poppies have kind of, all the flower heads have fallen off. Everything's falling over. Let me see what we can do. So let me just put this one to one side just a second. We've got the base going really well for us. The problem is the base is all a bit spiky, so it is catching everything that comes into the set. So that's the joys of working on a small set and also spiky flowers. Okay, so trying to get it back to where it was. Okay, and I'm going to cheat a little bit and pull the background a little bit away, and hopefully then I can see where these thistles might live. So I certainly want to layer this image up, and if I leave the thistle there and just think for a second in how many flowers or what I'm going to layer in. Originally I had brought on to set the rosemary, so let me see if that's still a possibility or if that's now just going to be too much in the, see, we might be able to kind of bring it in on top as building it in over it, and that might work for us, particularly because in bushes there's always an underside which is kind of dead, and then the rest of it on top is alive. So we could see if this will work for us in like a very hollow shell underneath the live. Let me take out the thistles for a second and see if we can build this up. And although it's been difficult, I still love it, so it's worth the difficulty for me.
otherwise by now it would be something that would be removed and disappeared. But I'm wondering if this might need a little bit of help to stand up. So here, if we have, let me just see what the other branch is like, if it will stand up on its own. Oop. Or that might be better there. Let me just see if I can find a little piece of something to hold it upright. So bear with me a second. I'm trying to find a little jar or something that I can just prop this on. And I do have jars just for this occasion. And I'm going to see if I can just prop open. And I wonder if perhaps the framing of the set is better for you if you can see the TV monitor and myself rather than just the camera. But let's see what works. Okay, so that's still a bit tall. I'm going to okay, let's see if I need something just to kind of fall. This needs to fall slightly more into it. So building up a few layers to see how we might balance things without toppling them onto the bee. Okay, that's quite nice. Okay, so I love the pattern, the swish and the swish. That keeps everything kind of in keeping with the patterns. Now, I do have an old thistle which is kind of coming to its last legs here, and that kind of, I think that's more in keeping almost than the live thistles that we had here, because they are very grey. Do you see? Can you see the difference there? One is very much alive still, and this one has turned grey. And the greyness of this and the twistedness of the bottom and the shapes, I feel kind of match better than a live thistle at this point in time. Now, I don't want to put it in the very middle, but I do want to put it somewhere where we can see the twistedness of it. Oop. So that may be something that we use as a, I don't really, because we've only got one, I don't want it to be the centre, because the bees are the centre. But let me see if we do have it. I think we've only got one of those actually, which is very annoying at this point. Let me come back to that one, because the other things I have here are these little white bushes that I picked yesterday, and I kind of like perhaps the idea of having them as sweeping down from the bee upwards. But again, I'm not really, now I'm looking at them, we might have to come back to that one to see whether or not that's going to be in the final image. I have only 2 of those branches, so at this point I'm just working out what it is we're
going to do, because obviously that might overpower the starkness of the bee, but at the same time it might be the break we need between this area, which is obviously dying, and this side here that is bringing spring in. So that might be just right there, that might be like the barrier, and then to have everything above it be really spring and really vibrant. So let me play with that idea in my mind. I do have these wonderful red grasses, and I haven't brought them out so far because they're red. The minute you put anything red on your set, it kind of then takes over, because red is just, it's one of those colours that draws everything to it. As anybody who wears red lipstick will know, it's just a colour that demands attention. And do you see there? The minute you put it on set, it is attention seeking. So in a set that is so blue, putting something red in there, and I'm not sure, even above the white, it may not sit very well. So let's come back to that one. Now the white, let me see. Here we go. So some of these whites we had thought about here. If I put them taller, that may be something. So I'm kind of torn between whether or not this is going to live in the image or not. I'm going to put it in for a second, but on the proviso that I may bring it out at any point in time. Let me just firstly use some good old masking tape on a glass. So let me just tear off a bit of masking tape. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to put the flower in a cup, and then hopefully I'm just going to try and put masking tape around it so that it stays in the position I want it to. So let me just, hopefully that will stay in that way. And then on set it will, okay, let me just push it in there. So it's a little bit taller than everything else right now, which means that in 5 minutes it will settle down and drop down. And I don't mind that actually right now. So let's work on the premise that I'm going to keep that, just especially because of the kind of moving away and that filling the background. And it still feels like it's encompassing the bee. It still feels like it's really still protecting the bee. So now we've got live things going on. Now in the background, I said about perhaps having like this underbelly of things that are dead or dying, and then having kind of spring go on above, where people, you know, that we don't really understand what's going on below, and we haven't seen the bee, and we don't really see what's going on down here, so everything else is springing up. And actually I have some freesias, and of course freesias make everything smell amazing the minute that you put them in a room. So let me just see if we should have we could have these, and suddenly they are very big in comparison to the bee. That's very dramatic in size difference. I'm not sure that I mind the drama of the size difference, but let's just see if we have other options first. I know that bees are loving these at the moment, and let me just bring them on set because they are obviously green and vibrant, and the purples are what are attracting the bees at the moment. So I'm going to see whether or not this is a possibility for our background. So let me just create myself a little bit of space and then bring up. So these don't, and because they've got little vines on them, they love reaching out and grabbing hold of everything else on set, including my thorny thistles, which it just did then. I was like, please don't do that because they are a bit sharp. So let me see if I can. Oh, yep, detaching these from each other is fun. they've just grabbed hold of each other, and I love the vine kind of idea of that. They are really vibrant. So I wonder if the camera with where you can see me can also see the monitor rather than the live view, which poofs every 5 minutes. I'm not sure. The green, yeah, I kind of like this at the moment, how it's building. Oh, but I don't like how that just went down. There's a bit of a Jenga back here, so I'm aware that this may not stand up, so I might try bringing in a bit of purple there and perhaps some here, but let's just see if I have a taller cup to put those in. So I have a cup here, and this is where really I use everything that I have in my house, all the cups, all of the jars, just to be able to get the right height, which that isn't. So I need something else which is a bit shorter, but just the right shortness. Let me try another jar that I have. So put that back. So at the moment, this is where we are. So we've got a bee looking over another bee at the front. Oh, that's almost the right height. Let me just see if I can. I kind of want that in there, don't I? Let me just. That's quite nice. It might do with a bit of bringing forwards. Okay, so I quite like that we've now started to get something kind of coming up, like growing upwards rather than just across. So it's kind of building up this layer effect that there is like the bushes kind of coming up here. Let's see if we can try the same this side with perhaps we don't need to. We can just suggest that the vines are coming up because these do have some beautiful little arms on them, and I love the little swirls that some of them have on them. They're just the cutest things. So I'm going to use that and just poke that upwards into the sky, and poke it in. Again, I'm really trying not to fuss too much, because I know that that may not be as interesting to watch as me fussing over a leaf for an hour or so. So, but if you do have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll happily go through them. How are we? If you'd like to tell us where you're joining us from, that's always interesting to know as well. Let me just, this background here. Just a little bit off center, I quite like that. Okay, so we've got some lovely little things poking up, and I'm really enjoying where this is right now. I'm not sure, I was thinking that I might need some yellows popping up as well, and I did have, let me just try that, just to see. Let me cut off a branch of the yellow that I have. And that might seal it back here, just as a, can you see? So it would just, so let me put that into a glass, or actually a bottle, and layer that background up so that it's literally like a spring back garden, or a place that, you know, some of the favorite flowers of the bees are actually growing, and so it gives you an idea that these bees would be there. Get it? Would be, okay, no, I won't make any bee puns, I promise. Philippe's telling me no dad jokes. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I promise that's it. Look, that's the only bee joke I've made so far. I think I've done very well to get this far without making any jokes of bees reference at all. I really wanted you to kind of there we go. You will cling you onto that one. Perhaps. Nope. They have little hooks on them, so I'm using their own hooks to hook onto the flowers that are already in set, to see whether or not we can help keep them in place by hooking them onto the flowers around them. Like, hey, be my friend, hook, support me, stay in the right position with me. Okay, so that's a nice piece of yellow. I'm going to just pop in perhaps a little bit up here. So yeah, that might live there. Let me just pop that into another container where my set becomes rather busy and full. Of course, now the last things I really want to do is to show that we are in nature, and that nature carries on. So whilst these bees at the front here are on the end of their life cycle, we want to show the bees busy up here, getting on with their life cycles. So I'm going to now put in a couple of bees in flight up here. to kind of indicate how spring, you know, keeps going. So what do we have? We have a huge bumblebee here. Let me just see if I can put him directly. Oh. Directly on top of the flower. Oh, he doesn't want to be. So I'm just going to maneuver him around. So firstly, super delicate and trying to get him maneuvered. Okay, so he's kind of there. I think some of the flowers that we brought in also have a little bit of some ants that are also having fun on the table, and I don't mind them being there. That's if they want to join in on the photo and have their photo taken, that's also fine. Okay, so that's one bee in, and I'm trying to not make them super like brash. These bees would be inside, you know, they would be inside things. So I may have one just coming in here. So let's pop you on. Oh, I'm sorry, my live view. And I need to, oh, let's just, okay, so let me just see if I can sort that camera out for you. Okay, so that bee back here has fallen over. That's because propping him up inside the petals is difficult. Let's see. Oh no, I really like that angle, but you can't see him because he's hidden. Let's see if we can get him to balance on that one. There we go. Okay, so there's two up there. I quite like that. And then we need something on the left side. So I kind of want something coming in and flying here. So I kind of think that the minute I think I pop something here, he might be a bit too heavy for it. So let's give it a go. Yeah, he's a bit heavy for propping up on just a leaf. So let's see if we that's better, but we will then have to just turn him round just a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so that's perhaps they're all a little bit too even at the moment, which I'm not particularly. He definitely needs like more air between him and the pollen. So I want him to be in flight. And because he's facing that way, I think this one should face the other way. So he's like, that's better. Okay. So there you get the idea that there's lots of bees kind of bumbling and being busy and kind of, you know, in the set, but they are getting on with their own thing, apart from this one, which you can't see and has fallen backwards. And I will probably have to prop him up with a little bit of help. So let me just show you, because I don't think I'm far off from my image being complete, what that might look like. I'm just going to pull the light away from the background. I'm going to focus on the bees in front. I have an f-stop of 5.6, which in the grand scheme of things is not a huge depth of field for where this image is, because there's a lot of depth in here. So let me just put a whiteboard up on the other side. It just gives you an idea of what this image will look like. So let me just put that in there. Of course, I perhaps might also think about dropping in, because that's very dark. But you see, what I might do is think about getting a little mirror and shining a mirror just into the bee in the middle there. And in fact, let me just see if I've got a little mirror around. I have a pack of little mirrors that I've got cut a very, very long time ago. If you can bring me rather than the screen to... Okay, so I got a pack of these mirrors made, and because they're super small, it enables me to shape light into areas like this. Now, if you wanted to, you could super glue onto the back of this all sorts of fixtures, like especially if you wanted to, like the angle heads and things for tripods, you can super glue those onto the back of the mirrors and then fasten them onto your tripod so that you can angle them and keep them in position. I haven't done this with this one, but I'm literally, it's just to show you what the effect might be. And I wonder if I can just create a little bit of space here. I'm going to put in my reflector on the side here. There we go. So it's always a bit of Jenga, so it's probably going to need to be a little bit closer. I would normally be on set if I was to hold it myself, so let me see. But I'm not going to be able to do that just at this moment in time because of having too many things in my hand. But I'm also going to put in a little bit of light, and if you go back to the screen to live view, you can see just a little bit, and it is only a touch in. Can you see? I don't know if it'll be very obvious. So just bringing it in and out, hopefully you can see it. So I'm going to just bring myself back so you can't see my hand in shot, and once I've got the little bit of sparkle in there, I can take it, and that will hopefully bring up a little bit. Obviously that is still really dark, so I would have to, I've got it on 1/40th, so I can lower the shutter speed, but I will also at the same time put this on a timer because I don't want to have the camera shutter move whilst I'm pressing the button. So I'm going to try again here. I'm just going to put it on timer and put in the mirror, make sure my hand's out of shot, and then click. Okay. And that gives you some idea of what that image would be. So far, that's the image that has told the story for me. So if you can bring me back in, I'll just wrap up and talk to you a little bit about these images. So the great thing about this concept is there is a lot of resources out there, and the concept itself came about because it was spring, but it also allowed me to go and research a little bit more about our friendly bee, which I didn't know, and some interesting topics if you're interested in following them. And it's a non-profit organisation, and they have a website, and they're also supported and helped with by Nat Geo, and they have actually an app that you can download, and it's called Naturalist. I think Philippe's going to show you on the screen those links and those apps. Now the app is amazing because it allows you literally to be a social scientist, a civilian scientist, where you go around and you can photograph the bees and nature in your area, upload them, and then feed that information back to this bee conservancy and Nat Geo, so that they've got data points of what's in your area. Again, massively interesting to me. I loved learning about it, and I love the fact that my photos that I was taking as reference material for my photograph here today was able to then to be uploaded onto the app and to be shared as a data point. I found that to be, I loved that. That was great, and it made me feel like I was part of something much, much bigger going on. So I hope that those things are of interest to you. One last thing before I wrap up, and some really, really exciting news. If you guys are interested, I have now opened a Patreon page with a creative exercise course in it, and right now for the first month it's €5 per month to join up, and I have over 17 exercises more coming, where these exercises take you through how to become more creative and inspirational and build up training of becoming inspired continually by the surroundings, by the things that you're in, and to remain creative. And I know that sometimes everybody needs a little bit of push and help, and this exercise and this course is created specifically with the idea of you in mind. So go and sign up for that. It's €5 a month, and you get access to all of these exercises immediately, and there's more being uploaded every week. So please go and support me there. I loved having you along. I'm just going to check in with Philippe. Was there any questions coming in? Oh, okay. So no questions as yet, but this is live. So if you do have questions after this is aired, feel free to go and drop us comments, drop us questions, and I will, as always, come and answer them and go through any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting me and this channel. And I hope that you'll continue to do so. And that's really easy. All you have to do is hit the like, subscribe and notification bell. And then you get to hear next time we go live. But we will be back here next month at the end of the month, last Sunday of the month at 2 p.m. GMT +1.